Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Jason with Jadren Aquatics. Thanks for hanging out with me again. So in a previous video, I showed you guys how I drill all of my tanks, and you guys saw this stand that I was building that holds 12 20-gallon longs. So that's what I was doing, is drilling all of these tanks for that. So I got multiple requests, people asking me, how do you plumb these things? How do you set up your drip system? So I'm gonna show you guys step by step exactly how I do that for this stand, so you guys can understand exactly how the process works. So let's go ahead and let's move back there so I can show you guys. All right, so first of all, let me show you the stand that I built. So this stand will hold 12 20-gallon longs, 6 on each side. And then I created a gap, like a 4-inch gap in the middle. And so all the plumbing and stuff will all happen in this area. And then of course on this side you have the other 6 20-gallon longs that'll go here. But again, this is all one continuous shelf. So let me show you guys step by step how I get this thing plumbed all up for the drainage, and how the drip system will work on it. First of all, let's talk about the fittings that we use inside the tank. So again, this is the bulkhead. So this will set on the inside of the tank like this. This is a 1/2-inch bulkhead. The ones that I like to use are threaded on the inside, and they're threaded, well, they're threaded on both sides. You can get the slip kind, but the problem is if you get the slip kind, you have to glue them in, and it's very difficult to ever get them apart. Well, you can't get them apart. You just would have to cut the pipe and then try to use a coupling. So when you're able to use the screw ones, you can reuse them over and over and over, and it makes it a whole lot better. So the first thing that we're going to use is, this is a 1/2-inch T that has a hose barb on the end, and so this is going to be the one that's on the outside of the tank. So this one just simply screws in on this end, and then this will give you the hose barb that I'll show you a little bit later, where the hose that comes out that runs out into your drainage system. And on this one that's on the inside, the way that I like to do it, now one of the things you need to keep in mind is whenever you drill the hole in the tank, is that you place the hole so that when you use this elbow, that this elbow is at the water level height that you want it to be. I like to keep it above the rim so that it doesn't get all of that water ring around it. So that's why I drill it so that this actually sits above that level. Also be sure whenever you drill the hole that you give enough room so that you can actually turn this thing to get it on, because I have done it before where it's almost impossible to get this on. So we simply put this one on there, screw it on there like this. This one right here you might want to use pipe tape on so you don't want it to leak, but this one, it doesn't matter if this one just barely leaks just a little bit. As many times you're going to screw it on, the chances of it leaking are pretty slim anyway, but it's just going to go down the drain pipe. So this is going to sit on the inside, so as the water level rises and it gets above this, it's simply going to overflow into this hole. Now one of the things I want to do, or I like to do, is, this is a big hole so that snails and plants and anything else can get in here. So I like to use these. These are some blanks that you can buy from Jimco. These are basically what they punch out of the center of sponges. They come about this long. So I cut it down to about this length, and then I take it and I just shove it in the hole like this. That way it keeps anything from getting in there, and you can pull this out and clean it real easy. Now this is based upon a slow drip. This thing is not going to take on water very fast at all because it's so clogged. So just due to the fact that I'm only dripping you know, maybe a couple of gallons in 30 minutes, this thing can keep up with it. But if you're putting a whole lot of water, or you're pouring water, this cannot keep up with it. So it's not going to overflow. It's going to overflow out of your tank. So let's go ahead and let's move on to the next process. So here we have the actual drainage piece that I've built. Again, this is all out of 1/2 inch. There'll be 3 of these, one for each level. Each level has 4 tanks on it. So one tank will drain into this one, the second into this one, third into this one, and then the 4th one drains into this one. And since this is the one that'll go on top, this tank will drain into here, but this will be setting at a little bit of an angle. That's too much of an angle, but just to give you an idea, it's going to be setting at an angle so that all the water flows down. And when it flows down, it's going to, this is going to have a connector, and it's going to connect down into the one below it. And so the one below it will look pretty similar. So you got this one going down, and then you've got this one going at this angle. And so it flows into one, and then it flows into the next, and it flows downhill, and it flows down until it gets to the very bottom one. And then here, this is the last one. Whenever it gets into this one is going downhill, and then this will actually connect to the drain pipe that runs into my sump pump to pump that excess water outside. So I'll go ahead and get all these set up. It's going to be difficult to see inside of the stand because of the way that I built the stand, but you guys can kind of get an idea of how this all works. These are all 1/2 inch tees that are on here. And so again, the way that'll work, this is the bulkhead, this is what's in the tank, and then you'll take a piece of this flexible 1/2 inch hose, and it'll attach onto this hose barb, and then you'll take this, one of these tees, and see, I just cut a short piece of PVC pipe that goes in there, and then this will just simply fit. And so that fits down into there, and so that's the way it works. When the water overflows, it flows through here, flows down this tube, and then flows into here, and again, because of gravity going downhill, it all runs down until it runs out into the final drain pipe. Alright, hopefully you guys can see down here. You can see how the drainage system is all hooked up now. How each one of these overflows into each one of these pipes and then again runs downhill. So the next thing that we need to deal with is the automatic drip system so that we have the automatic water changes going on. So first of all, we have one of these landscaping type drippers, and I buy these in different sizes, different gallons per hour. The ones in the 10s I use are 1 gallon per hour. On the 20s, I use the 2 gallon per hour, and on the 40s, I use 2 of the 2 gallon per hour. That way it's always changing the same amount of volume no matter what the tank size is. And so this one is going to be for all 4 of the 20 gallons on top. So you can see I've got 4 of these guys hooked up. So you can see it here on the ground. Obviously this thing will be all straightened out so that each one goes to each one of the tanks. And the way that it'll work, and so here we have the cover that goes on the tank. As you can see, I've got it notched right here. And so that's why the black piece right here is real short. This stuff is 1/4 inch kind of rigid tubing. It's the same stuff that you see used for ice makers on your refrigerator. And so this real short piece right here, so it'll just slide right into this. So that when you look at it like this is basically how it'll sit. You have to be careful because you don't want this dripper to get too far down so that it's actually in the water, because you will get backflow going on this thing. Whenever this entire system stops, all the water is going to start gravity feeding to wherever, you know, it's naturally going to flow. And if this thing is in the water and gravity starts, it is going to pull water up in there, and it's going to flush it out in the system, and it's going to flush it into whatever the lowest point is or the lowest tank is. Believe me, with all the tanks I have, it's happened to me many a times, and I've always had to do different types of fixes. So that you guys know also, these fittings are just absolutely fantastic. Again, these are the 1/4 inch fittings. But they make it so easy because all you do is just snap this stuff in there. So this is one of the quickest things to do whenever you're setting up an automatic drip system, is by using these you can just quickly put it together and quickly take it apart. Obviously that's why these things are called quick disconnects. So this is the pump that I use. This is the one that pumps out all the water to the entire drip system. This thing is sitting on top of a 275-gallon tote, so it's got a line going into the very bottom of the tote, so it's constantly pulling from the tote and powering all of the drippers. I'll link this down below if you want to check this one out. This is the second one I've had. The first one I had was a different kind of a Chinese brand that didn't last very long. This one has worked absolutely fantastically. This is actually a booster for an RO unit, but this thing right now is probably powering about 50 tanks, and it still has plenty of pressure to power many more. I believe this thing can easily handle 100 of the 1 gallon an hour drippers without any problem whatsoever. And if the pressure does get a little bit low, you can always just turn your timer up a little bit longer so that it will run. But be sure and you always check the farthest dripper that you have from the system to make sure that it is getting water. The way that I kind of double check everything is if I notice that one of my tanks is starting to get kind of low, that's telling me that there's a problem and that it's not getting water, because I run this system for hours every single day. If you guys want to see a more extensive video, I'll link it above of exactly how I have this entire system set up. And last but not least, the last thing that we need to get set up is the air to each one of these. Again, I use sponge filters in all of my tanks. So you can see right here, for each of these 4 tanks that are going to be on each one of the rows, I've got a gang valve here that controls all 4 of the ones on top. And of course, this gang valve simply goes up to my air line that I have up here in the air. And so each one of these lines heads out and goes to one of those tanks, so it makes it real easy to control from each level. So on the second level, I'll have another one, and the third level, I'll have another one. Thanks again, guys, for stopping by. I appreciate each and every one of you. Be sure and leave a comment down below if you have any type of question. Love to be able to help you guys out and make it a little bit easier. Hope you've learned something from this video. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, be sure and click that subscribe button. Don't forget to hit that notification bell. So thanks again, guys, and God bless.